Welcome, everybody, to the latest edition of the Bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by BetRivers. Thrilled to be joined by a guy who's local. He's a Cleveland guy. He's a diehard Cleveland sports fan, and he is already, at the age of 29, an accomplished play-by-play man, which is, as someone who tried to go down the play-by-play road, I know how hard it is to make a name for yourself in the play-by-play world.
You're watching Adam the Bull on the BetRivers Network.
All right, we are now joined by Cleveland's own great broadcaster. We were talking off the air. He knows how I feel. The guy does just such a great job with college basketball to the point where he is thought of as the college basketball guy around the country, not only doing great play-by-play, but he knows the sport so well. You're a play-by-play guy and an analyst, and to get where you've been by hard work. You know, there's no nepotism here. You didn't have a dad doing play-by-play that opened the door for you. You've kicked down that door by yourself. I know you're a somewhat recently married man, which is great. And, you know, things seem to be going your way there, John, and I'm really happy for you.
Adam, it's humbling to be with you, and it's always great to be with you because – you know, I grew up on the west side of Cleveland. By the way, God bless my wife. I don't know how she does it. I still have a ring on, and she hasn't gotten rid of me yet. No, you know what? I grew up on the west side of Cleveland. And when you grow up in Cleveland, you eat, breathe, sleep, die Cleveland sports, no matter what it is. I was 7 when LeBron James got drafted, right? The Browns are an institution. They're part of the culture. And the Indians, now Guardians, you know, I cried when Jim Thome was no longer on our team.
Yeah.
But I'm not just saying this because you're my friend. But, you know, I'm at St. Ignatius High School as a kid and, you know, 15, 16 years old when you're really coming up in Cleveland with your afternoon drive show. And you and Dustin Fox, you know, back when I was in high school, you know, you guys would hand it off to a young Ken Carman, who did the 7 to midnight.
Yeah.
And the 11 o'clock hour was something straight out of a really weird movie, Trailer Park Boys or whatever.
Yeah.
The point was I listened to you guys growing up. You're influenced by your company. You know, if you have the right company. And for me, when you have Tom Hamilton, Joe Tate, wham with the right hand.
Yeah.
And Jim Donovan, who is just the best. Those voices, they mean the world. And, you know, I'm so proud to be from Cleveland. I think it's just a blue-collar area. And, yes, I call New Jersey home now and love New Jersey and love being out here. But, man, you know, it's fun to do this for a living. And I never could have predicted, you know, people are like, what's your 5-year plan? What's your 10-year plan? In this industry, that doesn't exist. I'm trying to get through the next 5 minutes or 5 hours. You know, you take it. It's kind of like the Terry Francona mentality, win the day.
Yeah. And
I've been lucky that people have given me a shot, but I've always said to people, you know, just give me a chance and I'll show you what I can do. And I'm very humbled, you know, to get that opportunity. And it's great to talk with you, my friend, during quite the time.
Yeah, it certainly is. And one other thing while we're lauding each other here, I want to say is that in this business, there's so much selfishness, right? There's so many people that are all about themselves and all about their ego. And listen, you have to have at least a little bit of ego in this business. You got to believe in yourself. You got to be confident or you're not going to be successful. But I think what makes someone special in this business is the way they point guard, if you will, for other people, and make your partner in a broadcast or your partner on a show look good too. Because if the team looks good, then you all look good, and you're excellent at that. And that's really, you're really great with your analysts in the games, and you could tell that you have like a relationship with them where you want them to succeed as well. It's not just about you.
They're the stars of the show.
Yeah.
Well, the analyst played the game at a high level. The coach coached the game.
Yeah.
And probably played the game at a high level. Your broadcast is only as good as your conversation with your partner, not the game. You know, Adam, I had a producer tell me one time, I got off the air and I said, oh my gosh, that was a 2-point game in overtime. What a great game and what a great broadcast. And the producer, who is a harsh critic, but in a good way, goes, it was a great game. Doesn't mean it was a great broadcast.
That's right.
Your 25-point blowout was actually a better broadcast, and here's why. You told that story about Luke Carnesecca with 8 minutes to go. You talked about Patrick Ewing and his influence on Georgetown. It's those little intricacies, but I think the best broadcasters are also listeners.
100%.
You got to listen to what your partner is saying. It can't be shoot a question off them, they give you an answer, then you move to the next topic. That answer could end up taking the whole segment. And in a college basketball game, which I call a lot of, the way that the game works on the men's side is it's 20-minute halves. They take media timeouts every 4 minutes. So the segments are a little bit chunky at times, but the point is, like, you've got to have a flow. You've got to have a flow to the game. And I love doing this, and I do appreciate you saying that, because that's something that I really stress. And one of my bosses said last year, I know I can put you with just about anybody. That's the ultimate compliment.
Yeah.
Because that means that when they're looking at a schedule, they don't say, oh, I can't do that, or I can't pair them up. They don't like working together. So You know what? It's very humbling to do this for a living. And my biggest piece of advice for anybody watching, and I think anybody could take this no matter what they're doing, when it's your time to pick up the bat, be ready. You don't know when that time is. You could get your big thing in 5 years. It could happen next month. But, it's just staying ready and staying humble. Like, a lot of people have said to me, wow, like your Cleveland rants, you wonder what the Browns would think of that. I actually have separate stories on that.
I bet you do.
Wonder what not what you might think.
Okay, all right.
Not what you might think. I think maybe some of the words that we're both saying, some people in that building are thinking, yeah,
all right,
exactly what they're saying. Yeah. But I think for me, Adam, I'm a human. Like, yes, I'm a play-by-play guy, but some of the social media stuff, I could promise you, it's not done for attention. It's done because I'm just telling people how I feel, and I think there's a relatability there. And I 100%. Like that. I'm a sports fan too. It's okay for broadcasters to be sports fans. I'm not calling the Guardians game, but I am a sports fan.
That's right. And I think it leads – I think when people are honest in their social media, you connect with the fans, because it doesn't feel like you think you're better than the fans. No. You're a fan also. That's your job, is to do play-by-play, but you love sports. It's clear. Anybody that follows you on social media knows you love sports. And so let's talk about the Guardians here, because obviously Game 3, I mean, I don't even know where that ranks, John. Is that the greatest win? Or maybe not. Is it the most amazing win? Most improbable win? If you look at the circumstances.
In the playoffs, I would say yes. In the playoffs, I would say yes. The first two that come to mind when you say that question are, number one, the improbable comeback against the Mariners on Sunday Night Baseball. This is now years ago, when the Indians came back from 14-2 down.
Then Kenny Lofton sliding into home plate.
Kenny Lofton and just that Marty Cordova in that game, and Alomar, and okay. The other one would be Bill Selby hitting a walk-off off Mariano Rivera. This is back on my birthday in 2002.
Right.
But playoffs, Adam.
Yeah.
I think it's as improbable a win in my lifetime. Really, in my lifetime. Because when the Cavs would win a big playoff game, LeBron James was at the helm. Yeah. So come on, let's not act so shocked.
Right.
And the Cleveland Browns haven't had many improbable. Well, they've had improbable for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, that's true.
This moment, Thursday night, does make you think, right? Let's set aside everything else going on for a moment and just say this.
Yeah.
You had to think, Bull, when Noel hits that homer, and then you're relying on Pedro Avila, who, by the way, did a great job, but you're relying on Walters and Morgan, who didn't get the job done, and then Avila. And then David Fry does that again. It does cross your mind, if you didn't know it was just a 2-1 series, is there some sort of destiny going on? Like, are they just that team that just, when you think they're totally buried, they're in it? We're going to find out Friday night, tonight. Yeah. But that was utterly insane And I've never had an experience where you felt like in the 8th inning, the game was over, the series was over, this was dead. What a shame, because they really could have won the game and probably should have won the game. They were the better team for over 7 innings. And then to get your heart ripped out of you, but respond that way, that is a credit to Stephen Vogt and the team, because they truly never quit.
And what's amazing is, and you said it, like with LeBron, you always got a chance. It's LeBron. But the Guardians win this game in crazy fashion when Jose did nothing, Josh Naylor did nothing, and Emmanuel Clase was terrible. So those are your 3 best players, essentially. Yeah, you want to throw Cade Smith in there. But even Tanner Bybee hasn't been really good in the playoffs. And yet here they are, and we'll see what happens going forward. Who knows? But just that they've gotten as far as they have without those guys doing much.
And now here we stand at a game 4. And we both said this coming into the series. At some point you felt like the light on the stage was going to shine on Gavin Williams to come out behind the curtain and do something.
Yeah.
The theater of this game, I don't remember, like Cleveland fan aside, even if you were a general fan, I think you wake up on this Friday morning and you're like, I'm deeply intrigued to see what happens now in game 4. I don't know. They're throwing Gill. We'll see. He's hittable. He's more than beatable. The Guardians are throwing Gavin Williams. But I'm in agreement with you on this. Like, the Guardians have not played their best baseball at all.
Nope.
The Yankee Stars delivered in a massive way.
Yeah.
And have delivered. Like, I was in an argument earlier this week with some Guardian fans, because I do have to tell like it is at times, and like they're like, the Yankees aren't that good. Okay, they are beatable. They are beatable.
Yeah, sure.
But they earned the first 2 games. Like, Guardians' mistakes aside, Soto, Judge, and Stanton all homered. And Stanton and Judge own 2 homers in 3 games of this series. If I would have told you that, you might have said this series is over.
Yeah.
It's not. It's very much alive. Now it's up to Cleveland. It's simple in language, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
This team has to just continue to find clutch hitting. They're getting base runners. They got to continue to find hits.
That's right. Let's talk, before we get to the Browns, which is not nearly as fun to talk about as the Guardians. I want to, it's funny because obviously you grew up in Cleveland and now you live in New Jersey. And I grew up in New York, lived in New Jersey. Now I live in Cleveland.
Yeah.
And you said you love New Jersey too, and and when I moved to Cleveland in 2011, and I've said this before, I never would have thought I'd spend the rest of my career here. At the time, I was not interested in spending the rest of my career. I didn't even know. I had never been to Cleveland before, ever.
How'd you get there? I'm sorry to, but it's a podcast.
Go ahead.
How'd you get, what made you say, okay, I'll go there?
So I had been working on the Fan in New York. I was, one of their fill-in hosts. I was getting a decent amount of work. And it was 2010, like late 2010 or early 2011. I can't remember now. So winter 2010 into 11. And the general manager of the Fan in New York, I don't know, at the time, was Mark Chernoff, who's the father of Mike Chernoff, the Guardians GM.
Right.
And Mark, I had done an overnight show because in New York, they're on local 24 hours, as you know. So I had done an overnight show. It's 6 a.m. Mark would come in at 6 a.m. And he came in during my last break at like 5:40 or whatever. And he's like, Bull, come into my office when you're done. And I'm thinking, oh boy, that can't be good.
Right.
Because usually the boss doesn't talk to you unless you did something to screw up.
No, it's one or the other. It's a 10% chance there's an opportunity, and a 90% that you screwed up.
Right. And I wasn't thinking about the opportunity at that point. So I'm like, oh boy, all right. So I do my final segment on the show, and I go into his office. I'm tired. I've worked all night. I think I did 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. And he's like, would you be interested in a full-time job in this company? And I was like, of course I would be. I was like, what kind of job? He's like, I can't tell you what city it is in, but I'll tell you that it's east of the Mississippi. That's all he said to me, believe it or not. He goes, it's east of the Mississippi. So I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, I'm interested. He goes, okay, I'll follow up with you in a couple of weeks when I have more information. So I drive home. One of the very rare times you don't have traffic in New York is you driving out of the city at 6:15 in the morning.
Right.
I get to my house that I'm living in. My wife and I had just gotten married, and I'm living in Bayonne, New Jersey. And I wake my wife up at 6:30, 6:45, whatever it was. I said, Mark Chernoff just told me there's going to be a full-time job opportunity. I got to try to figure out where it's going to be. He said it's east of the Mississippi. Now, at the time, he hadn't said it was going to be a brand new station because Cleveland didn't have Cleveland had a sports station, but not a bad one and not in our company.
Not FM.
Right, not FM. So I was looking at current, because it was CBS at the time. Right. I was looking at current CBS stations east of the Mississippi. So I was like, Boston, great. Philly, great. Miami, great. Atlanta, Chicago, all these cities. I was like, as I said to my wife, as long as it's not Detroit, it's great. Which is totally unfair because I've never been to Detroit.
Right.
But you hear the same baloney that you hear about Cleveland with Detroit.
Right.
So for a couple of weeks, we're like trying to figure out where's it going to be. I think I'd fit better here. I'd be better in Chicago than Boston and blah, blah, blah. So Mark calls me a couple of weeks after that, and he goes, so we're starting a new sports station in Cleveland. And my first reaction, as someone who'd never been to Cleveland, who grew up in New York, and I lived in upstate New York and New Jersey, but I hadn't lived off the East Coast.
Right.
My first reaction was, Cleveland? Because what did I know? But I was like, yeah, I would probably be interested. Sure, it's an opportunity for me. And then oddly enough, within a week, crazy, I met 4 people that had either originally been from Cleveland or had gone to college in Cleveland.
Wow.
And all 4 people said, Cleveland's the best. It's a great place to live. There's no traffic. They went through all these things. And I'm like, my wife and I went from being like lukewarm. We were excited about the opportunity, but not excited about Cleveland because what did we know? We heard the same crap that comedians say and all this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
We were stupid. We didn't know any better. And then a couple of weeks later, we're like beyond excited. We're thrilled. We're going to Cleveland. Everybody says it's awesome. We're going to have this great life there. 2 weeks after that, Mark Chernoff calls me and says, the plan to start a new sports station fell through. I'm sorry. It's not happening. Yeah. Yeah. This is, by this point, I think it was March or April of 2011. The plan had fallen through. And so I went from being lukewarm on Cleveland to once they told me it wasn't happening, I was devastated.
Wow.
Devastated.
Wow.
And so I got offered a job doing, 10-10 wins in New York, right? I can't remember now if it was 10-10 wins or 8-8. I don't remember now because they were part of the same company. Right. But they offered me the sports update guy in the morning, which I did not want to do. But I wanted a full-time job. I had just gotten married. We wanted to have a kid. So I was like, I guess I was about to accept it because I was in the middle of a week where I was like, doing it as like a test run. And they technically hadn't officially offered me the deal, but they were going to offer me a deal. And that's when Mark called me back and said, Cleveland's back on. Are you in? And I'm like, yes. And a day later, I got a call from Tom Herschel, the GM in Cleveland. We negotiated for a couple of days, and the rest is history.
Unbelievable.
It almost didn't happen.
That's amazing. That is an amazing story, and now you're there. And it is a magical city.
It's great. There's nothing I don't love about it. People say, there's not enough to do. There's plenty to do. Yes, New York has more restaurants, but there's a lot of great restaurants here. How many more do I need? I have all my places that I love.
They're both wonderful areas for their own reasons.
Yes.
I happen to, I do think that Yankee fans, they have their 27 rings, and I'm not going to let them, they're Yankee fans. They have, right. Yeah. But this has turned into a rivalry when these two teams meet in the playoffs. Yeah. And like a result like Thursday night, that just was that. We'll never forget. We'll never forget that ending. But now, Adam, the ending gets magnified on whether or not this series becomes a series here tonight.
That's right. And we'll see what happens. But I do want to talk to you about the Browns before we go, because I know you've been so frustrated by this team, as everybody has. And, as you said it, for anybody that may not know Cleveland, I'm sure if you're watching this podcast, you know Cleveland. But for those few who may not, I've never seen any place where everybody cares about sports. Everybody. New York, there's a lot of sports fans, but you meet a ton of people in New York and New Jersey who don't give a rat's ass about sports.
They just want Broadway. Yeah,
that's it.
Here,
yeah. I think I've met 8 people here in 13 years that don't like sports. I mean, men, women, black, white, Jewish, Gentile, gay, straight. It doesn't matter what your life is, what your lifestyle is. There's some ownership. Being a Cleveland sports fan is part of who you are as a person in this town. And the Browns, more than anything, represent that. The struggle, the aggravation, the fighting through, the grit, the heart. And it's wild because the Browns seem to be trending in the right direction. And they feel as unlikable right now. And it sucks because Nick Chubb is maybe the most likable Browns player ever. And we love him, and we're excited he's coming back, and you love Myles Garrett. But right now, it just feels gross being a Browns fan.
Because we've been lied to, and we're being lied to. And the lie is the person that they trot out on the field every single Sunday, and that is Deshaun Watson. And when they made that move, obviously you have a level of skepticism, but we all thought that was a move that was going to benefit the franchise in their attempt to hit the home run. Because the discourse on this has obviously been wild, but where I think the discourse gets lost is this: they went 1-31, and the thought was when they had hit that rock bottom that they would shoot up to the stars and be a Super Bowl contender. This is supposed to be a championship window for this franchise. When you come off the season that they had last year with as good a defense in the National Football League, with skills position players that on paper, Adam, heading in this season look good, look like weapons were present. They have a bit of a shakeup with their offense, and you say, okay, that should help. And Deshaun Watson led them to a win in Baltimore with a second-half comeback that was extremely impressive. The moment that the Browns won that game, I thought to myself, they can do whatever they want to do. When they beat the 49ers last year, you go from, without Deshaun Watson, with P.J. Walker, when you go from that and the level of enjoyment of that to the prime of Myles Garrett, the prime of Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, the prime of David Njoku, these players who are in their primes and are supposed to perform and are going to get it done, you can tell if we're not dumb, and trust me when I say I'm not that smart, and you would be humble enough to say we're not geniuses. We talk sports.
Yes.
We don't know how to – if somebody put us in an operating room, we wouldn't know what the hell to do.
Not at all.
But if we're not dumb, the other 52 men in that locker room are not dumb. And I do blame, I want the Browns to win. When the Browns win, it's better for everybody. It's better for you. It's certainly your viewership. We don't want the Browns to lose.
Yeah.
I don't really willingly, other than the Steelers, I don't have this hatred towards really any, I'm not ranting on them every Sunday afternoon because I think it's going to help me with traffic. I don't care. I'm so upset with this football team. I need a vent session with somebody, something. Yeah. So for me, it's a joke. It's a joke what they have been this season. They are the laughingstock of the NFL. The same old Browns were supposed to be done. Those days were supposed to be over. That's when you hit rock bottom. You've gone back to same old Browns. Now, what do you have to do? Well, it's only a matter of time until Deshaun Watson's not the quarterback of this team. I do blame the coach partially because the same old stale message on other fronts that are not the quarterback, it's stale. And I love Stefanski. I really do. I've been a Stefanski supporter. There I am. I'm telling you right now, I really like him. I would not want to fire him. Anybody who thinks that firing him is a solution, I promise you, the Philadelphia Eagles will hire him. Or the Jets, or the Bengals. if they move on from Zach Taylor.
I would do that if I were the Bengals. Jacksonville, another team. I mean, yes. I agree with you. He's a good coach. Now, he's not having a good season as a coach.
No. He's
not having a good season. That doesn't make him a bad coach. And maybe he's carrying some water for Jimmy Haslam. Who knows what the truth is?
Absolutely is carrying water.
You have to assume. No. And by the way, if the reason to play Watson was he gave him the best chance to win, then why'd you trade Amari Cooper? Like, if it's about trying to win. So it's baffling. And I was like you at first when they changed up the whole offensive staff in the offseason. I was like, okay, you look, but now it looks like, they kind of overachieved last year, and look at what the offense looks like now. What did they do here? And by the way, the one coach on the offense, the only coach they haven't changed is the wide receiver coach. And yet there's no progress from any wide receiver they get. No. Nobody gets developed at that position here, ever.
No, and the general manager clearly has not had a good track record here in recent years with the draft picks that he does have. There are plenty of third, fourth, fifth rounders who are performing in the National Football League, and he hasn't really hit on any of them. So they're in deep trouble. To the people who say this is going to take years to recover from, I disagree with that. It's the NFL. The Commanders have totally changed their complexion because of literally one draft pick. Jaden Daniels changed everything.
Yes.
The Houston Texans with C.J. Stroud. Like, the Browns were a good team, Adam, before Joe Flacco.
Yes.
When he started playing, they became a great team. They became a great NFL team. Now, did they have a crappy showing in Houston in the playoff game? Yeah, great. Yeah. Great teams can have bad showings, and that was a bad day to have a bad day.
That's right.
But this whole discourse of the quarterback thing, like, they did screw up. I know it's the biggest mistake in NFL history, but as opposed to many mistakes, Adam, like, I'm not going to sit here and totally slander them for doing it because I understand why they did it in that 100%. Moment. I know people are now like, they suck, they this, because they're an easy target.
Sure.
The argument that's dumb for me is when people say, Baker Mayfield, and then, the Flacco argument. Like, I wish Joe Flacco were on this team, but it wouldn't make a difference right now. He'd probably be sitting because that's right. The structure of this organization.
Yeah.
You were trying to win a championship. And the Mayfield people, I'm just telling you right now, I don't care if the Buccaneers are unbeaten right now. They're not winning a Super Bowl.
They are not.
They're not.
I agree with you. Now, he gets his credit. He's playing well.
He is playing well.
Absolutely. But do you trust him in a big spot? I do not. Obviously, you do not. We'll see what happens.
I like him. Yeah. I like him. I think he's a good quarterback. But they made this move thinking that they could hit the big splash.
That's right.
And it splashed back in their face.
Yeah. Hey, you got to hit it in the draft. I don't know that I have faith in Andrew Berry making the right pick. I would personally fire Andrew Berry. But that's how you turn it around. That's how you mentioned. That's how the Washington's turned around. That's how the Texans turned around. Go back to Joe Burrow. The Bengals before Joe Burrow. Nothing. Now he's carried along Zach Taylor. So, yeah, you get the quarterback. You get it right. You get it done. John, we got to go. Great talking with you as always. What's your first college basketball broadcast of the year?
I am opening night. Opening night, you get a lot of random games, non-conference games. I'm doing St. Peter's at Seton Hall. Seton Hall's coach, Shaheen Holloway, obviously took St. Peter's a couple years ago on that Elite Eight run. So there's a little tie in there. I've got UConn's opener on that Wednesday, November 6th. So November 4th, Seton Hall, St. Peter's, November 6th on FS1, UConn welcoming in Sacred Heart. The following week, Sunday, November 17th, I'm doing New Mexico at St. John's at the Garden.
Ooh, I like that.
On FS1 at noon. That's Rick Pitino versus his son, Richard.
Oh, wow. That is awesome.
That'll be a lot of fun. And a couple other things in the hopper I can't say yet, but I'm excited.
All right. I'm excited for you. Johnny's making the tourney, yes or no?
They're making the tournament. I think they win a tournament game for the first time in 25 years.
Oh, it's been so long.
Such a drought. Win a tournament game for the first,
Yeah.
They haven't won a tournament game in 25 years.
Yeah. Unbelievable. John,
unbelievable.
Keep up the great work. Love you, man. We'll talk to you next time.
Love you too, Bull.
John, the great John Fanta, right here in the bullpen, brought to you by BetRivers. We'll see you next time. Thanks to Max and Z for producing. Thanks to John for joining me. We'll see you next time right here in the bullpen.